ndakhula kusithiwa ungowako kwenu, ayikho laa nto ithi
Yes.
ungumamni, ungumamamakho. So umamam ngumamtolo, nam ndingumamtolo. So a brief background of who
I just want, before Kobe, I just want to say join the club also. Nam ndingudlamini, umama ngumadlamini. So it's yeah, xa ungumntana entombi, that's how it is. Xa ungumntana entombi, ilolo hlobo. That's what I know it to be.
and
KwaXhosa iqhutywa ngolo hlobo.
masiyamkeleni, man, Lester, masiyamkeleni. You know,
Yeah.
you know, as the dynamics zokufuna into okokubana feel fulfilled, zibone ngathi you are normal nawe. Akho nto abnormal ngoba ngumntana we-single parent okanye ngumntana womntu ongatshatanga, you know.
And it also doesn't work. Lendo hamba ukhangela otata. I know if a lot of people abahamba bozigodusa afika umuntu abe disappointed because lo muntu amleqayo is not what they thought they were, you know. So be content with umama wakho and all of that. So I just want to say I love that, and I also am a big fan of that type of setup because umama bethu, they've worked very hard. And you must appreciate what they are doing for us, you know, and what they've done for you, as it were.
Injalo mntakwethu, akho nto ingaphelelanga ngoba uzalwe mhlawumbi iqala loba kungekho abantu ababini, kukho umuntu omnye. Ubuwenzile umsebenzi wabantu ababini, that's suffice and that's enough. So ndiphelele ndinjalo kabawo, ndilelo qobokazana ligcweleyo, ndishoti nganto. Yayiva?
Wow.
Yes, wena Neza.
So yes, so ndiphuma ke phaa eBizana, ndifunde khona, ndingumntana omgquba e-Eastern Cape. Ixesha elininzi lam ndisheyithwe e-Eastern Cape. I always say abantu xa bendibona baye babe nento yokucingela into okokubana ndimke eli mhlawumbi ephondweni ndaya phana phaa. And I always take pride in saying I was not just born in the Eastern Cape. I was born, bred, nurtured and refined ephondweni. So yonke into endiyiyo is literally a deposit of what the excellence that Eastern Cape represent. Xa sele imarka umntu, ewe ke zikhona nezinye izinto ezinezifonjanyana, but xa sele imarka umntu Eastern Cape iya excella, and I am a typical testament and example of that mna.
Wow. That's very true. And I think for me now the question before Spesio getting in your candidacy, just I mean, I know you from the ANC and then later on COPE, and I just wanted to know because for me one of the things that came to my mind is, wow, I haven't heard from you in a very long time, you know, from that time and that era. What have you been busy with in Ngel Klesha Ubu Quiet before you actually moved on this particular journey?
You know, Lester, when you are a leader, you get to a point where you understand the broadness of leadership and the calling that leadership requires from one, to always have an ear that is on the ground, and to always have an ear that is cognizant of what is it that my people or my country is calling of me to do at this particular point in time. And when I left politics, I've always been a speaker, but I did not have a global footnote at the time. I was just confined in the country domestically. And when I was not active in politics, after Parliament, you will remember, doors opened very, very well for me, where I was able to enter into avenues that I wouldn't have ever imagined that I would set my foot in. I became a global speaker, especially dealing with organizations and institutions that are multinational in nature and international in character, most of them, where I have been, speaking in different countries. I can count your Kenya, your Rwanda, your Germany, your United Kingdom, your England, your USA, your Canada, your many countries. And that global speaking emerged from the Anele that was an activist who has always been a person who speaks on pertinent issues that cuts across the entire broader spectrum of our society, whether it's social welfare issues or social justice issues or it's gender issues or it's political issues or it's developmental and political leadership accountability issues. Having my voice consistently in those areas, speaking on issues, especially that affect the dejected people that do not have a voice, that has contributed largely into my brand or into my image and also my profile, growing both in Africa and also beyond the borders of Africa, far superseding as well the borders of this country. So that is what pretty much I've been busy with, and I have collaborated with many strategic institutions and organizations. Amongst those, it will be the Obama Foundation, which my relations with the Obamas started when I was the member of parliament, and it grew and became one of the most strategic engagements that I get to participate on, and also a platform that I also use to open doors for many other not so privileged young people, especially in South Africa, who come from rural areas.
Wow.
Yeah.
Look, I just want to say now, before we're gonna go now into the questions that we will be talking about your candidacy, but I think everyone who's listening to you now, the Anele that was and the Anele that is now, have just listened to what you've been saying, completely different. And I think I like the fact that you also emphasize that when you left politics, because sometimes in the world you need to come out of the thing in order for you to be able to come back into it and have an outside view, and that then maybe makes you become a better sort of a candidate in the current environment. How much of that do you think is part of why you are running? You're coming out and now coming back into, and sort of the perspective, and how much of the sort of perspective that you have in the country, as it were, has it influenced?
I love that question, Lester. I love it all for two things. One, it encapsulates the aspect of knowing one's relevance and mileage, and the time for that relevance and for that mileage. And that's exactly the kind of a person that I've always been, the one who believes that, in order to remain objectively able to put contribution and impact that will last longer in any environment that I'm in, I must never exhaust the environment. I must never overwhelm the space. I must understand, what leverage do I bring by being in the environment, and I must be able to measure my relevance. I must equally check what is it that I can still offer. That for me comes from a wisdom of understanding that we may be leaders, but we need to understand seasons where our leadership is called to the stage. But we must equally understand seasons where our leadership is called to the background. And that takes maturity, because sometimes once we are preoccupied with knowing that we are leaders, or we have been recognized as leaders, we believe that we are always supposed to be on the stage, because that's the only understanding that we know of where the leaders should be. Sometimes I'm that person who believes that sometimes, even as a leader, you must retreat to the background in order to do a tactical assessment of what there is and what is required, and also refuel and re-energize yourself so that you are able to come back with far much better a perspective, far much better an outlook, and obviously a much sharpened vision of what is required of you during this season.
Thank you for that. I'm equally pleased with the answer, because it really speaks to maybe the vision that we currently need as a country, and the kind of perspective that will move us forward. Spoky, over to you.
Yeah, Neza, you have had the experience being in the political fraternity and in the political space, but we always want to know, who are you going to be accountable to as as an independent candidate, and how would you be doing that? Are there some reporting tools that you have? How would you do that? Who will you be accountable to?
Thank you, Spogi. This is a very important question because it unpacks the area that is a fear to many people. The one that says, we know that when you are a political deployee, you account to the organization. But
Yes.
this is the crux of what the effectiveness of our democracy should be about when I spoke. Because no public representative should be accounting to a political party. You know why? Because when we stand there and take the oath of office, we are not taking the oath pledging our allegiance to a political party, because we have since taken off the blanket of being members of political parties. We are now entering a new territory of becoming members of parliament, representing those who wanted us to be there and those who didn't want us to be there. Now, when it comes to me as an independent candidate, firstly, one of the reasons that makes me to have chosen the National Assembly instead of a provincial legislature to contest to go to is that the problems that our country is facing at this point in time require a massive national footprint in one's outlook in order for one to be able to reach as much ground as possible. That is exactly one of the things that political parties never preoccupy themselves with. And as an independent candidate, I've got the privilege of putting across constituency offices, Zaga Anele, in different constituencies and in different provinces. That firstly creates an access, direct access from the people on the ground, with me as the person who must be able to take their issues to parliament and follow their issues to respective portfolios where they're supposed to be addressed. Secondly, the benefit of being an independent candidate does one thing and one thing only. It puts me at a risk of being held accountable to the things that I would have said to South Africans. And it also removes me from the comfort cushion of knowing that I will be in parliament for a full term because my party will protect me. I will enter parliament after the 29th of May without the cushion of having a political party protection and shield, because I will directly be accountable to South Africans by means of quarterly public engagements that I must rotate in all provinces, where I must be able to present myself as the candidate to those people, but now coming back as an MP to say, as having been elected as an independent candidate who now is an independent member of parliament, this is how I am accessible. These are the issues that the 12 months of my presence in office will be covering and will be doing. These are the mechanisms that we have agreed that will put in place to hold me accountable. Like I always say, being an independent candidate put me at high stakes all the time. Because if, for instance, Spoki gets to pick up information about Anele having been involved in something that relates to a bribe paid to Anele, which obviously compromises the position of Anele as an MP, when Spoki processes that information to the Speaker of Parliament, and the Speaker writes me a letter to say, I need you to come and explain yourself. If after explaining myself to the Speaker is not satisfied, she is duty bound to process me to the Ethics Committee, which after 14 days must go and table the report to the National Assembly, which can arrive at a conclusion that says this member is no longer fit to hold office. As a result, she must be dismissed. There is no party that will jump and say, we are still going to process the matter internally. There is no internal where I am concerned, because the citizens are directly the ones who hold me accountable.
And that you will vacate your office immediately.
I don't even have a choice, my darling.
And tell me, Anele, obviously being like saying that you don't, as an independent, you don't have a protection of a political party. Can you just tell us and the listeners what challenges have you experienced so far, and how are you dealing with them?
Yo, Mamela, it's been tough. It's been very tough. But the beautiful thing about it is that the toughness came to someone who knew what she was starting and who expected the road to be very grumpy for her. And I think the most glaring challenges that I can talk to in Aspoki, one, it's the fear of people who have not been clear on whether to support me through their resources, because they're not sure if they will be known after they have donated their resources to my campaign, and those things will come and haunt them because they are still linked to certain political parties. And resource mobilization has been a very, very difficult area, because no matter how much resources I might have as a person, but a campaign in during the time where political parties budget for multi-millions for their election campaign is not an easy thing. But also, one of the things, it has been the reluctance from people to believe that indeed there is a constitutional judgment that allows independent candidates to contest. I mean, I've been meeting people saying, we hear you that you are an independent candidate, but what is your party's name? You get what I'm saying? And you keep on having to unpack. Okay, let's maybe try and simplify this independent candidacy thing, and even when you try to reach that simplistic level of unpacking it, you will still have people saying, but when you won't be in the ballot because you don't have a party, so we can't vote for a person who will not be in the ballot because you don't have a party. So those were other challenges. But I think one of the greatest challenges that I think has been a motivating challenge as well is the one where people have really been saying, you know what, we see the courage that has led you here, but we are really hoping to listen to you, bringing something that is out of the norm as far as the solutions that you are proposing is concerned, because that's where we want to judge you more than anything. We want to judge you by the message that you are bringing to South Africans. And that's the challenge I was looking for. I was looking for people who say, we want to hear a unique voice, but we want to hear, where does this uniqueness come from? Where is it going to be focused on? And what issues is it going to be addressing? And that, for me, was the most important thing, because it tells me that South Africans are not passive people. It's people that indeed they are very much active into understanding, seeing things that are happening in their country, and they can hear when you are just coming as a broken record that is repeating things that they've been told many a times before.
Yes. No, thank you, sis. But last.
Yeah. Wow. I think, I mean, you spoke about something, the accountability factor, which you explained very well and very nicely. A lot of political parties have been putting out their manifestos and all of that. I think last week we spoke about Good doing their manifesto and all of that. So the issue of resources, I hear about it, but talk to us. I mean, this is an opportunity maybe for some of the guys who are listening now, in terms of the manifesto, that the things that you are hoping to bring into the South African sort of atmosphere that currently we are faced with. Exactly, some of the uniqueness, the thing that you just spoke about now. What changes, or if you were to have a manifesto, what are the things for you currently do you think South Africans need the most?
I actually have a 10-point plan manifesto, Lester, which is a document that captures what is the vision that I am seeking to go to Parliament to serve the people of South Africa with. Because we can't just stand and say, I'm an independent candidate, and you cannot articulate one proposal of a solution that you are bringing. Here are some of the issues and the areas that my 10-point plan speaks to. The first one is a very courageous decision that I've taken that says we must arrive at a point where we must totally abolish the tender system in South Africa. It's a very unpopular view, but it's a view I'm not prepared to compromise or to retreat on, because I know it has got so much people that it has kept outside. Here is my contextualization of the tender system. You know, the tender system is it is an accreditation for the people who must sit at the VIP in a tent that is full of the whole entire community that have been called to come to a meeting where they were promised that all their voices will be heard. Here is what it does. The tender system brings business people, a few of them, closer to the decision makers, right? It then endears them to those decision makers, and it creates a mini circle that these politicians or the decision makers belong to, and they keep the rotation of this doing business with the state amongst themselves, because the politician that is inside keeps letting his or her connection on all the opportunities that arise. But what happens to the people of South Africa who are deserving of doing business with their country, regardless of whether they do have a connection or not? What happens to them? They end up paying SARS from penalties, being punished for opening businesses without having money. But over and above that, they suffer the political consequences of not knowing any political person whom they are connected. The basis of them opening businesses becomes a futile exercise that bear no results at the end of the day. Hence, you will find that the people who are around politicians, who have already entered into the inner circle of the tenders, they never even talk about the opportunities that are inside, because it is the bra code that we are the ones that are now eating, and we will not expand the circle. That is the first point. The second point, it is addressing my proposal on the drastic changes that are required in ensuring that we do bulldoze this elephant that is blocking young people from accessing the job market, which has emburdened young people into becoming simple prisoners of unemployment. The internships. Right now, the intervention of internships is that each company that participates on the government's initiative of youth employment service, which is called the YES initiative, they are all obligated to allow to give young people internship opportunities to the tune of 12 months. But here is the thing that is a discord on this. Every single workplace requires a standard 2-year work experience from everyone, including the entry job openings, even from young people. Now, when you've got an internship intervention that you have created as a workplace experience accumulating intervention, why do you make it a 12 months when you know the job market requires 2 full years for every entry job requirement that a young person is going to apply for? What does that effectively mean? It means that you are not using your intervention qualitatively to arrive at addressing the problem of unemployment. You are simply enabling the big corporates to tick the box of creating internships, whilst the money they make with each candidate that they get to acquire on an internship, they earn more than 450,000 themselves as a company from government. So they get to be compensated, and the gain is more for the corporate than it is for the young person who's looking for employment. And my proposal is that we must have a fixed 24 months work internship for young people who are fresh from school, who are being put into a workplace experience, accumulation experience, so that they can be able, after the internship, to get straight into the job market, deserving and having a well-recorded 2 years of work experience that they can use to get those, to seize those opportunities.
Wow. I mean, the things, that you are raising are very interesting to me. Particularly, I mean, I think the tender sort of system, we have been kind of speaking about how problematic it's been. Also, just in terms of service delivery, compared to the previous system before the tender processes, and how much money has then been lost into that particular system. Do you think that, I mean, the country, as it were, has the kind of appetite, for what you are raising, and of course, I mean, I know that when we speak of the appetite, I'm not necessarily speaking to the beneficiaries. I'm thinking just the country as a whole. To actually, you are proposing just these two. I mean, we haven't gone to your number 5. Just these two have a potential of great resistance, even when we are in parliament, because of what we also come to know as cadre deployment, which also has created a system of really being having one and the same beneficiaries on this environment. Do you think the country at this particular juncture, 30 years into our democracy, is ready for that kind of radical change into the policies that is become used to and become sort of embedded into the system, as it were?
Look, one thing I'm a proponent of, Lester, is that for as long as we get curtailed by fear, whenever we ought to take unpopular steps towards fixing whatever that is broken in our society, there's nothing that we can ever do. There will never be any change in a country where, if our mentality is tied to the fears of the status quo, or is tied to we are going to be rattling the cage, and rattling that cage means that we're going to be rejected. There is absolutely nothing wrong in facing rejection when you are on a cause to correct the wrongs. And there is absolutely no point of us even imagining, South Africa outside of this party political hegemony that it is stuck at now, if we're not going to make these drastic, aggressive calls of the paradigm shift that is required in society. And I dare say, as much as it may be an unpopular stance, I can tell you now, in the electorate, it does resonate with so many people. It is receiving resonance with so many people, because the reality on the ground, as much as so many people may act as though the tender system has changed the economic and social landscape of so many people, it has not done so in a manner that is out of merit. It has done so in a manner that is very dubious and very suspicious, and it has denied, if it was to be on merit. I tell you now, small businesses that would be a success story in our country would be far more reaching than the current status that we have. The economic, the active economic mainstream participation of small businesses would not be in the margin that is currently at, because you would be having so many industries that have got new entrants and participants that have entered as a result of the tender system. But what the tender system does, it locks those who have no way of penetrating a certain industry. It keeps them outside. We can make an example by subcontracting contracts. How far do those go in as far as ensuring that the subcontractor does ultimately, gradually, it gets elevated into the next level of grading in terms of its character and in terms of its position as a company, so that it can now be in a position to attain and seize much more bigger contracts. Nothing of that sort happens. You know why? Because the gatekeeping chain is the tender system. And I'm saying, South Africans, there is no self-respecting, sane thinking, logical and rational South African who will reject something that is going to push everyone into the crawl and say, let us all be inside, let us all get a chance to put our hand on this big cake, because all of us are deserving of being inside. Then we might fail, but it must be on merit, not on political connection.
Wow.
Wow.
Olwethu Gwanya here just a comment says, "Oh wow, wisdom speaks. Just the kind of real content we need as this country." Ndiyamva yazi mna. Uyaviwa sisa. Uyaviwa. Yeah. Spoke, you wanna pose a question?
No, I'm just quite hooked on this tender system. Do you think? I know maybe it's not a word, but is it biasism of some sort that doesn't that the community don't have better lived experiences of what the tender system is supposed to deliver at the end of the day?
Look, this is how a society gets blinded when as Pogi. There's a PR and a rhetorical talk that gets fed to the electorate, right? Then there is the actual work that gets delivered to the people. So what you have is a very good PR that has sustained this party political hegemony over the 30 years. Because in South Africa, we are orators. We are people who are very good in putting words in a much nicer way. When we know very well, we mean nothing from the things that we are saying. So what you have on the ground is that people have been made to believe that through tender system, no, umntana sekhaya wakwazi ukubana afumane out of that tender yokubuildwa kwe-toilets phayana, wakwazi akwazi uba kuthiwe yena makayofaka ipatu kwiglasi, wayifumana laa tender wenza 40,000. But were we able to quantify what was the value of the tender qualitatively and in monetary terms? What was the value of the tender? What went to the principal bidder versus what were the areas that were outsourced to the subcontractors? And what was ultimately, quantitatively, the value of that, the value of the earnings that were given to the subcontractor? And then over and above that, what in the character of the profile of the subcontractor changes in terms of their positioning in order for them to be a fully fledged enterprise that can now go straight into the market by its own self and seize this big contract? There will be nothing of that difference in the making. That is where you get to see that the tender system is about a systematic exclusion of those who do not have a way of forcing their way inside, using those that are already in the circle so that they can also enter. But it is rather an entrenchment and a sustained or deferred exclusion of the aspirant business people whom have not even been given an opportunity to test their merit on the market, but they are just simply put aside because they are not aligned to the powers that are inside that determine on the cake that must be shared now.
So what percentage are you aiming for in the upcoming elections?
You know, the good thing about it being an independent candidate, when I spoke, even though it's it's a mountain to climb, I'm gonna climb it. I know South Africans, they are very pop. So I need to get from IEC. I am marked on 90,000 votes, between 90,000 and 105,000 votes that I must get. Mind you, political parties just need to get 63,000. Can you imagine how unfair this system is?
Imagine.
We are
So
not
basically,
going.
you must earn your numbers. That's what they're saying in a nutshell.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
Interesting.
I mean, Anele, you've just blown my mind away on a number of sort of aspects that you've putting on at the moment. I mean, just those two, they are very heavy. I mean, because if we were to expand on the tendering system and all of the things that you've raised, there are also elements of skill, that come in there. That the subcontractors and all of those people that get involved, how do you then quantify or qualify the skill that comes out of there? Where are the follow-ups and all of that, even with the internships, all of those things you raised. But you've just killed me now also with the comment you made that in South Africa we're orators. We're just very good with our mouths, but in terms of implementation, which I think, I mean, it's a reflection of the. Yesterday, I was going to Alice to a funeral there. There was, some mini sort of riot there, people burning tires on the road. All of that, we know that all of those things are as a result of people being tired of hearing the good things and the right things. But when it comes to the experience at the end of the day and the implementation of the things that they've been heard, there's less of that on the ground. And so and unfortunately in our political sort of system, which I think you were a very big part of and you've actually seen and experienced, is that around about this time, that's where then people start going back to the people and want their votes and then promise all of these niceties, but at the end of the day, when it comes to delivery, so you being accountable to the sort of South Africans as an independent candidate. Let's suppose 200,000 people vote for you. How do you promise to make that effective for them if you become part of? I mean, when you become, let me not say if, when you become, a member of parliament.
Love that. When.
Yeah.
Very important, that when.
Yeah, yeah. The if is just too it's lacks faith, so when is
Leaves it
actually
to
proper.
either or. It gives it to either or. We are very certain at this point. We are very certain at
Yeah.
this point.
Yeah.
Look, Lester, one of the things that I pride myself of as a person of conscience, a conscience that is very alive, and a conscience that guides my ways and leads my all my advances in life. I come here in 2024 with if you like, it would have been a chip on the shoulder, but I'm a product of a very humble household where I was taught humility, where I have lived humility and I've seen humility, and I know that one of the greatest ingredients of being a leader is that of having your feet firm on the ground at all material times. And I'm going back to Parliament as a person who once served our nation in Parliament. And when I saw the purpose that I was in Parliament to fulfill, I could see it being aborted. I was not tempted to stay in Parliament because it was such a lucrative environment to be in. I did not choose the perks that came with the position that I find myself in. I remembered that I have crisscrossed South Africa and I came across people who said, we don't have much to say about what COPE will do, but we believe in the power of the voice that Anele brings into this landscape of South Africa. And there is something genuine about her voice and about something, whatever that she articulates to be, things that she stands for. And it doesn't, you don't wake up and earn such public affirmations from people just for being beautiful or just for being a dark beauty. It has to be something that genuinely reflects of the kind of a leader that you are. And I think it is one of the things that people have never tested. how much integrity is a leverage for sustainable leadership. And I bring integrity that I have already been tested with when I was in parliament, and I was far younger than I am now. The pots that were smelling good there with all the good food that you could think of that could be tempting. I had to remind myself that I am here for the people. So one of the things that I will always assure South Africans of, I will never take advantage of the will of the people. I will never make it to work for me than it must work for the people. If I need to make money, Lester and Spokey, I must go and sweat and work hard. I must go crisscross the world like I have been doing, working for my children, working for my home, and working for my ancestors to be able to keep umzwasekhaya unenkomo unegusha unebhokhwe kulinywa and everything that a rural girl does. But I must never go into a public office because I want to put a tombstone of my grandmother. South Africans deserve honesty, integrity, selflessness, but over and above that, they deserve leaders who are willing to reduce themselves in order to elevate the people of South Africa and our country. And I'm saying, my reason to stand, it is because beyond this point, we can no longer watch this country being destroyed and think that it can come back if we wait for more than these 30 days, these 30 years, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Okay.
Wow, thank you, Anele. I think, I mean, the landscape is ripe for political landscape is ripe for change. We've heard a lot of people who are saying that this should be our 1994, that is 2024, in terms of, you know, changing the status quo, you know, some of the things that you've put out there, and being able to actually rattle the cage, as it were, so that we take a new discourse, you know, as a country. But I think my closing sort of question to you is not necessarily a question, but I mean, this week the news have been fraught. I mean, I listened on Friday, Utatu Olomisa talking about, you know, Siviwe and sort of the current environment, you know, the Speaker of Parliament that she's in and all of that. You know, in your own opinion, you know, looking at the fraud and the rot that also was uncovered, you know, by you know, the Zondo Commission. How much of that do you think still needs light and actual implementation in dealing with the people who have actually put you know, our country in the position that is in at the moment, and you know, so that we can see justice prevail and taking its course, you know, on people actually getting to go behind bars?
Look, Lester, you know, one of the things that I've been very much consistent about is the fact that the ultimate test of how committed as a country we are in fighting corruption will only be realized the day we start to stop chasing the Mickey Mouses and get straight to the big giants that are being protected day in, day out. I mean, we cannot be talking about in 2024 a person as senior in government like Usis Nosviwe or Nosviwe Mapisa Ngakula, and we are still having you know, this complacency and understanding of, oh, bangamvaleli yi-weekend uyawuthini uhlala the whole weekend ayovela only ecourt ngomvulo after ixesha elingaka ehlele ejele etyiwa zintwala and so forth and so forth. You know what? If the Zondo Commission was not a stage act, was not an act of imposter in this country at the expense of me and you, the taxpayers, then it is high time that post the Zondo Commission, post the State Capture Commission, heads should roll, not heads of the drivers, the heads of the people who take the decision for the vehicle to move towards the corruption side. And for as long as South Africans believe the loyalty that they have given towards two politicians over these 30 years, that is not sufficient enough to demand that recourse and justice must be served, not for us, this current generation, for the betterment and the restoration of this country, so that the next generation can find a country that is intact, like we found a country that was fought for, and we saw the democracy that people died for, and we now owe it to those people who died to preserve this democratic project, because it was not for us to watch it and let it go to waste. Hence, we cannot have people like Umamunos Viwe, who's just going to think that, hey, because I'm a senior politician and I'm not going to be rushed. Mama, you are going to be rushed. And the time to be apologetic to those senior people, because as senior enini, we don't need senior people now. We need leaders who are about the people. Whether you are senior or you are junior, lonto emva, sicela kuqale abantu, and asiceli lonto, we are demanding it at this point in time. I mean, we must reach a point where we are not even ashamed when someone tells us, yo, you are so annoyed, ni angry. Yes, the state of our country requires that we must be angry. If you cannot contextualize our anger, that's for you. Your lack of prowess and propensity to put right analytical tools to see the situation for what it is. We can no longer continue being people who are going to say, oh, kodwa sasinaye mzaba akuzatyalazwa ngoku wagqitywa umzabalazo kukhokelwa ilizwe kuthathwa abantu basiwa kulanto kwakuthiwa yivision leyo ihlalelwe eClip Town. Akuhlalwa eClip Town ngoku yaqhutywa. Yathini i-assembly ye-people, the Congress of the Peoples in Cape Town. Yathini, what was imigaqo eyayibekiwe to speak about the country that we envision, the leaders that we were saying were prepared to produce, who will fit the purpose that the democratic project will have to be for the black people. How far are we in that? We're nowhere. Who must then come back and tell us that I'm senior and rashwa mama funeka rashwe funeka uxheshwe unapologetically so,
and lead by example.
Yes. Lead by example, they don't know that. But I think I'm just gonna want to I don't know if Spoky there is anything you want to ask, but I was gonna give you when Sis Anele, just to say your last words to all the people who are listening, and the state of your campaign, and just bring them in, sort of into you and into what you're doing, and that looking you up on the ballot paper on the 29th of May, which everyone is looking forward to at the moment. So yeah, your people is listening right now. Kautetenabo says.
Thank you so much, Lester. First of all, I do want to echo the sentiment that says these elections of 2024, they are not just but any other elections. They are elections that really shape a new epoch in the history of our country. And they are the elections that require every single one of us as citizens to really dig and tap into the patriots that are locked inside of us and ask the most pertinent questions about the state of our country. How does South Africa look like? Where is South Africa at this present moment? Where would we like to see South Africa? What is the role each one of us can play in ensuring that South Africa is reclaimed and restored in her greatness as we have known her to be? A country where our dreams have been validated, a country where our aspirations and our children's aspirations have been realized, and a country where when we see ourselves, we can see the future even long after we have departed. So I do want to say to South Africans, this is the moment where we must put aside what we have known and the loyalties that we have given to people on the basis of the struggle credentials. We now need to pack the credentials of the struggle. We now need to shape a new trajectory, a trajectory that puts the center only to be South Africa and nothing else. On the day of the 29th of May, when we go to the ballot box, we need to be reflective of the state of our country in the most honest way ever. Let's each of us use our own personal realities as propelling factors that will determine the way in which we are going to make the change that we require in our country. And lastly, Leslie, I do want to say the democracy that we have, it was not won in a jackpot. It did not come as a result of a competition. It came as a result of sacrifice. If it was deserving of the yesteryear leaders and the yesteryear heroes and heroines to put their own lives at risk to sacrifice for this country, we need then to ask ourselves a question as this generation. What is it that in our daily dealings and daily deeds is in honor of those sacrifices to ensure that South Africa doesn't go down?
Oh, thank you so much, Sis Anele. So tell us, where can Abantu find and get your 10-point manifesto?
On the 28th of March, that is on Thursday, I am officially going to be unveiling the 10-point plan, which also will be in the press conference that I'll be hosting in Johannesburg. And from there, the 10-point plan will be available in all my my social media platforms, on Facebook, on Twitter, and on TikTok and Instagram, as well as people can be able to reach me in those social media platforms. And those who want the copy to be emailed directly to them, my team is able to do that. So, but we are going to ensure that it's loaded so that it's a publicly available document and people can be able to engage with it. And I'm also currently going to be embarking on manifesto dialogues that are going to be dialogues that I'm holding in different communities. Obviously, that is also going to be a rollout plan that I will announce on Thursday in my press conference.
So Thursday, guys, the 28th of March, it's an appointment. Before you go to Ipasika, you gotta stop for this press conference where you will hear the 10-point plan, which is the manifesto by Anele Mda, who is contesting the National Assembly. She needs all the support, guys, and prayers. So I think, as you have heard, please be plugged on and also on her social media so that you are able to get the current updates and whatever it is that she's doing, whatever meetings she'll be holding or halls that she'll be visiting. I think Zitini social media platforms, sis.
Okay, on Facebook, my page is Anele Mda. On Twitter, I am at Anele Mda. On TikTok, I am at Anele Mda. And on Instagram, I am at Anele Mda.
Yeah, Anele Mda, no one else.
Yes.
Sisi, thank you so much. And, we do want to wish you all the best. And we, in your campaign. What I know is we all definitely want a better country than what we have currently. And anyone that will have the privilege of sitting in the parliament and holding ultimately the position of presidency, in this next parliament or institution that will be running in the next 5 years, needs to have our hearts, in as part of the interest that they hold in getting us forward. And as you said, the next generation of this country needs to get a better country than what we have currently. So we really, thank you very much for actually coming onto our platform to share your sort of political campaign with us and your interest for the country, as it were. And I hope everyone who's listening, and I'm hoping maybe even before, will the elections, maybe sometime next month or in May, we'll have another one, just before we put our marks
on the ballot.
on the ballot. Yeah, have another session with you and hear where you are and how are things going. So I'm hoping that we can have that opportunity once again.
Most definitely. Thank you so much, Lester Nospoge, Diabulela kakhulu kuni. And I must also take this moment to really and truly appreciate the Keith Ngesi Radio for serving the people of South Africa, to ensure that the voices of the people reach much further and wider audiences. Because I mean, I am in Pretoria, but I'm able to talk to the people of my province through a platform like this one, which is one of the things that we must commend and appreciate about you guys as well. And indeed, as you say, we will make a 10 before you guys go to the ballot, so that I remind you that
where to put the X.
Oh, Mamtolo, we so looking forward to it, and Mamtolo, we really love you and thank you for honoring us.
You must keep up the spirit. Very refreshing, powerful, everything.
The energy is
the energy is there.
Guys, if you don't vote for her, vote for her energy then. I mean,
yes.
and everything that we really thank you, and have a beautiful Sunday ahead, and we'll see you soon, and we'll be looking forward to also that press briefing where you'll be talking to us about your manifesto. We'll look it up, and definitely I'm sure that next week when we sit down again, it will be on a Sunday after Easter Resurrection Sunday.
Yes.
So we will look into it, and we'll actually delve into it a little bit more. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, guys. I truly appreciated your time.
Thanks. Guys, you were listening, and you are still listening to Get Real. Stay Real with Lester.
You see now,
Stay Real with Lester is Pogi.